Matt, thank you very much for speaking with us. First off, I'd like to kind of hear a little bit about the work that AusAid is supporting when it comes to community-based adaptation, please.
Thanks for having us. I believe AusAid is the largest donor in the world on community-based adaptation. Certainly in Asia Pacific, we're the largest donor. We see the challenge of adaptation as enormous, and normally working through bilaterals and multilaterals is not enough. We need more entry points, and so NGOs and community-based adaptation is another entry point to solve the problem. So it's one of three main pillars on adaptation for us, which is national governments and bilaterals, multilaterals, and NGOs and community-based.
Why or how have you identified it as a priority like this? What is it about community-based adaptation that leads you to believe it should be prioritised in this way?
Yeah, good question. Adaptation is, the pragmatic responses have to be calibrated for the local circumstance, and the local communities know best their local circumstance, and therefore are well positioned to define and implement appropriate adaptation responses. Having said that, community-based only makes sense if it's framed within provincial and national and international responses overall. Like, you cannot expect communities to understand the entire national and international context. That needs to be framed within national regulations. So that's why we work at multiple levels. So I wouldn't say that community-based is our most important intervention. It's multiple interventions all need to work together to get the overall success.
And as somebody who's kind of funding these initiatives, what for you makes for a successful initiative? What is it that you look for when you're supporting these?
Well, firstly, we need to be sure of fiduciary responsibilities. So we have to make sure that every aid dollar that we spend gets spent on what it's intended to be spent on. So governance is very important. That's all programming, not just CBA. Secondly, we want to see results. When we work with multilaterals and national governments, it's very much about frameworks and strategies and capacity building. But at the community level, we want to see actions on the ground. So yes, there needs to be community-based planning and so on, but we want to see interventions. So hardware that we can count and number of beneficiaries that we can count. So that'd be the first 2 points. The third one I would say would be incorporating it with immediate development benefits. It's our view that you cannot have a successful adaptation intervention unless you also provide development benefits today. Because people legitimately want their kids to go to school, they want full education, they want nutrition and access to services, all of these development issues that they must have. The climate change is always a second priority, so you need to be able to find ways to incorporate adaptation interventions into immediate development needs.
When we talk to people about adaptation more broadly and about the transfer of resources to communities to help them adapt, some people raise the issue of corruption, and they say, well, hang on, how do you know this money is going to be spent where it's been promised to be spent? Do you face this issue with community-based adaptation? Are there conflicts of interest? Are there winners and losers, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, good question. Over time, with careful programming, I think at the local level there is actually more accountability in some ways, certainly rather than at the national level, because people can see where the money's going, and it's very obvious if it's being misspent. So there is a local level of accountability, which I think helps. But it's an ongoing issue in every country, and it's one of the core tenets of how we select projects that we work with. If we can demonstrate that the spend is being done in a way that's trackable and reportable. Part of what we do for that is we work with NGOs that are accredited with AusAid, and that they will then work with partners in the host country.
And just bringing it back to this conference here, I'd love to get your impressions of the event and also some of your take-homes. What are the big themes or the big lessons, if you like, that are going to be applicable to your work?
Well, the event itself I think is great. It's good to see a lot of people here from multiple perspectives. I think the connection with the science and the magnitude and scale of a problem, I think, is an area that we need to do more on. We've talked a lot about resistance and resilience, but there needs to be some consideration of transformations and migration as a final step, and is the sort of adaptation response that humanity's been doing for thousands of years for non-anthropogenic climate change reasons. So I guess I would want to see more of the really large shifts considered. But what I'm taking out of it, and certainly what AusAid will look more toward, is the multitude of lessons that are being learnt already and how we can leverage those. I get that's a knowledge management question, how we can take the knowledge that's out there and put it into AusAid programming.
Okay. Matt, thank you very much for speaking to us. It's been great to get your impressions.
Great, thanks.